Well, it's official. The Eagles and Giants will both be without several key starters on Sunday. However, it's the decision New York is making beforehand that's truly mind-boggling. Plus, Jalen Carter has a little extra bulletin board material, and he's going to make a difference. In this video, I'll get you caught up on everything you need to know ahead of the NFC East showdown, share the best picks and plays for Week 8, and go over the key matchups that will decide the contest. So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? We got a rematch between the Eagles and Giants, so do me a favor, drop a like on this video because this one's a little personal. That's right, after getting embarrassed and quite honestly clowned on national television 2 weeks ago, Jordan Mailata and other members on the team said this game means just a little bit more, which isn't exactly that surprising, especially being called soft and weak following the meltdown in the Meadowlands.
Well, then we got business. That we do.
It is kind of ironic how much this matchup is like the reverse parallel of what happened in Week 6. I mean, think about the fact that the Denver Broncos completed one of the most miraculous comebacks we'd seen up to that point in the season to beat the Birds thanks to 18 points in the fourth quarter, only to then top that historic comeback by scoring 33 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Giants. Yeah, doing two things. One, sending New York fans into a tailspin, and two, offering a little vengeance for Eagles fans from what happened on Week 6.
It happened to me, just as it happened to you.
And we came up short, and that was a tough one. Make no mistake about it, but you got to get back on your horse. And get ready to play a very talented team that we just played, 2 weeks ago. So we'll look at the things that, we didn't do quite as well, and we'll get on to Philadelphia with the right mindset.
All right, that's saying the right things. However, the way this week's played out, I'm not sure the Giants realize what they're doing. By the way, before I get into that, make sure to drop a like on this video and then go comment who the first touchdown scorer will be in the game on Sunday. Because like I do every week, I'm going to give away any jersey of your choice to one lucky subscriber who picks the first touchdown scorer and as long as the Eagles win. So get your predictions in and then come hang out during the live stream as we cheer on the Birds. Okay, look, the last time these teams met, this was the Giants Super Bowl. Like, New York didn't even try to hide it.
Skattebo, Skattebo. When you go against a team that has that passion, that fire, you can get your butt handed to you. You can get it handed to you. That's the truth.
Obviously, it was a terrible look for Philly, but personally, I kind of think that was the wake-up call this team needed. Heck, the squad even admitted they'd been lacking a swagger and attitude, but that game kind of allowed them to self-evaluate and make some changes. Remember, they added some padded practices earlier in the week, and more recently, they got BG back in the locker room and added Jalen Carter back to the defense. Something everyone has noted has lifted the spirits. Plus, the performance from JC and others in the game against the Vikings had multiple coaches and players confident enough to admit that the group refound their swagger. Now, you may buy that or you may not. Yet one thing's for certain, while Jaxson Dart might not have gotten much trash talk and attitude from Philly in the first matchup, he's about to hear it from BG pregame and on the sideline.
Does he always talk so much?
I recognize he's not going to play on Sunday, but just to have his presence out there will certainly be felt. However, the biggest presence, the one that Jaxson Dart is going to fill this weekend, is Jalen Carter. Especially with Breadman not having played in the last matchup versus New York, but having to watch his side get worked over by a really underwhelming offensive line. An O-line who was very proud of themselves after the game, with one of them tweeting out, "How about that MFN O-line?" But go ahead and take a guess at who saw that. Jalen Carter.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
I'm sorry, you can downplay it if you want, but if you know anything about this team, and especially Jalen Carter, then you know that's extra motivation for the game on Sunday. And although the weather forecast calls for 58 degrees with intervals of clouds and sunshine on Sunday, it ain't going to be a pleasant day for Jaxson Dart. Full transparency, I'm not the one saying that. The rookie's own teammates are telling him that before the game.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't have any haters, he'll about find out where they all live. He's about to get introduced to all of them.
Obviously, there's a piece of that where it's like, okay, fine, get the rookie prepared, help him to know what he's walking into. Yet the narrative that Dart's guys continue to share isn't exactly the best confidence booster headed into Philly. I mean, believe it or not, but you got tight end Daniel Bellinger advising his rookie quarterback to, quote, stick close to teammates in his first trip to Philly, saying that fan base, they're going to get a little gritty on the sidelines. Like, what are we talking about here? Some booze and fans smack-talking, trash-talking on the sidelines is enough to potentially work up your rookie quarterback and create some anxiety?
They're afraid of you, aren't they?
They should be.
Truth be told, like Kyle pointed out, the most dangerous guy Jaxson Dart will experience in the Link on Sunday might be his own head coach. Reason being, the league just recently fined Brian Daboll, the New York Giants, and Cam Skattebo for encroaching on concussion protocols, after it definitely looked like Dart might have suffered a concussion back in the last game against Philly. To be fair, if Russell Wilson was my backup quarterback, I'd probably be taking some extreme measures to make sure he doesn't get on the field, so I can't totally knock him, but it was worth, $300,000? Either way, it's blatantly obvious how much of a spark Jaxson Dart has given New York, because they've been leading or within 5 points in the fourth quarter of all 4 games that Jaxson Dart has started, which is probably even more of a proof point to how quick New York has been at getting off to good starts with Dart. Seriously, not sure if you knew this, but the Giants have scored the first touchdown in every single game Dart has started. Sorry, I probably could have told you that before I asked for your first touchdown score predictions, but now you know. For the record, that didn't change my first touchdown score prediction because I just think that means the Giants are due to not score first. Just like Saquon is due to finally break out and have a solid rushing game. Come on, the Giants have the 25th ranked run defense and are still allowing over 130 rushing yards per game. I don't know, maybe it's a fool's errand at this point to keep sticking with Philly to figure it out, yet let's not forget the Birds were moving the football on the ground before the game started to get away from them. Plus, they made some adjustments last week in Minnesota to run more plays under center, which is something the O-line prefers and allows Saquon to see the field a little better.
You get downhill quicker. Kind of could see the field a little bit better, to be honest. But I've done in shotgun, in college. I never was under center. And then when you get to NFL, you learn how to run the ball under center. So I don't really prefer one or the other. But I would say that's the biggest way. You can get downhill quicker, and you just can see the field a little bit more.
Who knows? It's the continual question that we will have every single week until it happens, but you got to think about A.J. Brown being out. Surely this is a game you have even a more concerted focus. You got to get the ground game going. I know the Giants maybe react to that too, saying, okay, let's even make sure more so stop Saquon. But go under center, assert your dominance, get this thing figured out. Although on the flip side too, we can also ask, with AJ being out, can the Eagles keep up the passing game momentum? Obviously they've got way more than enough talent. Yet if Hurts misses connections or plays as poorly as he did in the first matchup, it won't even matter. Again, the whole team looked flat, which eventually turned into 2 turnovers for the Eagles and 0 for the Giants. But I'm sorry, it's time for the cornerbacks to make a play and get an interception. And yes, that's even with the CB2 position pretty much being on life support. Courtesy of Kelee Ringo having to start since Adoree Jackson is out with a concussion injury, and Jakorian Bennett is shockingly being held out despite multiple practices this week.
Any other options?
Not really. Who do you want? Magway Williams or Eli Ricks? By the way, speaking of the cornerback spot, did you know the Eagles have now gone 26 consecutive regular season games without picking off a pass? Again, that's regular season. I realize they've gotten several in the postseason last year, but it's still pretty wild that no cornerback has had an interception since Kelee Ringo did at the end of the game against New York in 2023. A streak that dates all the way back to the time that Kelee Ringo did pick off Tyrod Taylor of the Giants. For those counting, that's the longest streak in Eagles history, so it's definitely time to end that one. It's also time to end the drought of my picks with Underdog. And right now, as one of the official season-long sponsors, you can get $100 in bonus funds when you play $5 and get additional gimme picks. You're probably better off not taking my picks, but you still should sign up, use code PHILLYSPECIAL, scan the QR code, click the link in the description. You can get bonus funds, gimme picks, just maybe not tell mine unless you think that I'm due. Also, we're currently in the middle of Boosttober, meaning Underdog is giving out boosted payouts every single day during the month of October. Plus, with the NBA season underway, there's all kinds of other boosts you can take advantage of. Now, when it comes to plays this week, I am believing that we're due. I'm going to double down here again. Feel free to tell. I don't blame you if you don't, though. But here's what I got to end the skit. This week, I'm rolling with Saquon to have a longest run higher than 16 yards, Jalen Carter to pick up his first sack of the season, and Jaxson Dart to throw at least 31 passes in a game they're going to be trailing. Yes, even without A.J. Brown, the Eagles are going to take this one. Because honestly, despite putting themselves in favorable down and distances in the last matchup, Jimmy Kempski brought up a good point that New York still gave up a couple sacks and a whole slew of pressures. FYI, over 33% of Dart's dropbacks resulted in pressure that game. It's just the Giants converted 11 of 16 third downs and Fangio wasn't able to get a stop. Mainly because even though Fangio's group has had a ton of success blitzing this season, it didn't work out that way on third downs against Dart. Because on the 12 plays where Fangio did that, Dart went 8 for 12 with 99 passing yards, 1 touchdown, a 119.8 rating, and took 0 sacks. Which again is why in this one, I think you have to rely on Jalen Carter generating that pressure and being unblockable so that you can spy with a linebacker or heck maybe 2 so that Dart can't beat you. Anyway, feel free to let me know what you think about those plays. Make sure to scan the QR code, use code PHILLYSPECIAL, or click the link in the description. Get bonus funds and gimme picks courtesy of Underdog. All right, on to the injury report, and this one's a doozy. The main points are that A.J. Brown won't play after he suffered the hamstring injury on one of the final plays against Minnesota last week. Adoree Jackson and Jakorian Bennett are out, like I mentioned, plus Cam Jurgens and Azeez Ojulari are also out, which is why I would have expected BG to be a go, yet Philly's going to play it safe and have him return after the bye week in Green Bay. Not going to lie, but the bye week is coming at an incredibly good time, especially looking at the laundry list on their injury report. Granted, the Birds got to take care of business first, and there's several concerning aspects to keep an eye on Sunday.
I mean, for this specific matchup, I don't know if my concern level is like through the roof, but just given A.J. Brown's history, especially with the hamstring injury, if you go back to last season, that same kind of injury popped up out of nowhere on the injury report. Then he missed practice all week. Then that time it developed into a multi-week injury. He missed multiple games. This time around, it seems like might hopefully just be a 1 week thing, especially with the bye week coming up next week. So hopefully they're just being cautious and they don't want to put him out there against the Giants, which is a team that they know was very physical the last time they played. You don't want to have to kind of put him in that situation if he's not 100%. Maybe they're just hoping they can get by without him. But it is risky if you look at their history without A.J. Brown and how the offense has performed, especially given this season how the offense has already been sporadic with him on the field. So the fact that they're kind of taking this risk without him against the Giants, who embarrassed them just 2 weeks ago, we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, just whenever you felt like things are, they have been trending in the right direction, but just whenever it's like, okay, sweet, you got the connection with AJ, the offense playing well, and by the way, I know there's just all sorts of speculation out there. We're not going to hit on everything, but I will say, and I mentioned this showed this earlier in the video too, but just to readdress it, it's pretty obvious if you put two and two together. It's pretty obvious that AJ Brown did get injured in that game. You watch his last reception that converts the big third down or the big conversion there, keep the drive alive, run the timeout. The way that he plants the lack of effort on the spin move, it's like you can tell that he did something to his hamstring. He stays down longer on the field, takes him a while to get up. And then even after the game, people were initially posting going like, hey, what the heck? Like, we won the game. But AJ, the look on his face is like concerning or upset or frustrated, whatever the case may be. But Zach Berman, and shout out to Zach for coming on a recent episode, but he even said the same thing too. He's like, it's more so, if you have a bad game, you don't talk to the media. Some people go, well, they're frustrated. But if you have a good game, you don't talk to the media. It's a lot of times you're going to get treatment. So again, putting two and two together and everything else there, I'm believing it's a legit injury. There's a reason that he was not practicing. There's a reason that they're being cautious with this. I'm just a little bit concerned because of, as we've started talking about, we we're mentioning even before we recorded this, like we're starting to see a little bit of a common denominator with an A.J. Brown and hamstring injuries. Hopefully this is the last one of this season, but it's this lingering thing that's been with him all the way since the offseason and training camp too. You got to get right. Those are never anything to mess around with, but multiple times now for A.J.
Yeah, I mean, people are obviously going to run with the narratives because of the social media posts that have happened this season by him already, and the reports of is he happy, is he not happy, the trade deadline approaching. So everybody's going to kind of hit that panic button, especially in Philadelphia and this media market that we're in, unfortunately. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I think, like I said, I think they're just being cautious, and they want to give him this week and then an extra week with the bye week to be fully ready for that run when they have that much tougher schedule with the Packers and the Lions and all those teams remaining. So if he's not back after the bye week, then it might be time to hit the panic button, but I think it'll be just fine right now.
That's for sure when you need the offense to be firing on all cylinders. However, it would be nice to get the running game going, and we say this every single time that we record for a game preview. I'm a sucker at this point because it feels like I also take the Saquon over on anything for his props, and it just does not happen. This is maybe the week. I don't know. It's the Giants again. You want to assert your dominance. The offensive line, the guys have been talking about that. Don't be passive. Show yourself a little bit out there as far as your identity. Saquon needs it, wants it to happen. You're not going to have a weapon in A.J. Brown. This would be the time. One of the many that we've said this year, but this would be the time. Get right with the running game. Headed into the bye, a little bit of momentum. However, one of our favorites, feel bad that I'm saying this here, but Brett Toth is out there, probably would be the assumption, because Cam Jurgens is not going to play.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like things like they got off to a hot start last week with the running game, right? Before Cam Jurgens got hurt, with those first 15 snaps that he was on the field, Saquon Barkley had 6 carries for 29 yards, which is an average of 4.8 yards per carry, which far exceeds his number for the season. It was like, whoa, They're finally like hitting their stride. They're figuring things out. The second Cam Jurgens left the game, the running game fell off a cliff. Saquon Barkley had 12 carries through the rest of that game with Brett Toth at center. He gained just 14 yards, 1.2 yards per carry, which is by far the worst of the season and just a terrible mark.
Not great.
Yeah, a running back of Saquon Barkley's caliber. So for me to tell you that this is the get-right game it feels like you said, this would be the 8th week in a row for the running game, I can't say that my confidence level is too high because even despite Brett Toth, it feels like everybody else has struggled at times, whether it's the play calling or there's penalties. Now you don't have the threat of A.J. Brown on the outside, so maybe they will load the box a little bit more, and then they only really have Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith as far as like proven passing targets go. So I wouldn't bet on this being the get right week for Saquon Barkley in the running game.
It's sad. It's sad, but yeah, I don't blame people for not doing that, which is why, and I mentioned this earlier here in the video, but it's why I took Saquon over 16.5 for the longest rush. So we're not going like rushing yards, not taking the touchdown, but if the Giants are good for one thing, it's one long rush. Like, we even saw it in the Giants game because it was Saquon who ran for, I think, 18-yard run last time they played, and then Tank Bigsby who ran for 11 or 13 yards, something like this. So there were a couple explosive plays. Just need one of them. And we're fine for the prop there. Does that help the Eagles long-term in the game? Not necessarily, but it would be nice to have one of those get-right situations. The other side of the ball, there's injuries galore, like we mentioned, and there's Giants too, so we'll get to that. But the edge play for the Eagles has been lacking. We've talked about this a number of times as well. Pressures are fairly decent, but they're just not getting the sacks. Now they're down another guy, Azeez Ojulari, who's not going to play. BG, who got in full practices, but he's also being held out until Green Bay for his first appearance, at least what we assume. I guess they could technically wait longer if they wanted to for some reason, but it seems very likely to be Green Bay at this point. What are your thoughts on the edge there? Because it's going to be light to begin with, maybe game plan or thoughts of even an elevation.
So there's two candidates on the practice squad, and Antoine Powell and then Titus Leo, that can be elevated. But if they don't want to, and I've mentioned this before on the show and the live streams, that Vic Fangio has talked about in the past being able to get away with only 3 active edge rushers. So technically that's exactly what the Eagles have on paper right now in Jalix Hunt, Joshua Uche, and Patrick Johnson. But especially last week with Nakobe Dean returning, Jalen Carter getting that push up front, we did see Jahad Campbell more on the edge. So if maybe they don't have to elevate somebody, they could just have Campbell on the edge as that 4th guy, especially with Nakobe Dean returning. You saw what he can do next to Zach Bond. He looked like he was 100% healthy against the Vikings. So maybe that's what we'll see. We'll see them put those 3 linebackers on the field in Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, and Jahad Campbell, and not have to rely on a different elevating an edge rusher or going deeper there.
Certainly with the way that the running game last time was attacked. It was Cam Skattebo and the lack of physicality. It wouldn't be the worst thing, I think, in my mind. You get all 3 linebackers there. Try to stop it, make it a one-dimensional type of game, right? We want Jaxson Dart throwing the football. He made some great plays, sure. They converted a lot of third downs. I totally get that, but it starts with the running game. Like that's where everything else opened up because it was like, oh, they're getting 7 yards a carry, it felt like most times. And then you got the play action, you got the everything else that plays off of it. So stop the running game first. And I know that people will also say, yeah, but we got Kelee Ringo, I assume, as the CB2. Little Jordan Humphrey got the better of him by quite a bit in the last game there. Jakorian Bennett was a full participant all week, or at least the last practice, but he was getting in practice. But the thought was like, okay, he's coming off the pec injury, activate his practice. I know you don't want to rush anything, but this is like, all right, Adoree's out, Jakorian's out, Kelee, so I've seen some people mention, yeah, what about Eli Ricks? What about Mac McWilliams? You would just throw somebody else out there. It doesn't matter. But it kind of looks like Keele's going to get his shot again.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted about it. This felt like the perfect opportunity to start Jakorian Bennett, especially if he did get a full practice on Friday, so it seemed like he was going to play. Obviously, they're holding him out. So, but I thought with the trade deadline approaching and the bye week approaching, this would allow you to get him a full game of tape as a starter. You've already seen Adoree Jackson and Kelee Ringo start as well. So now you can go into the bye week ahead of the trade deadline, evaluating all 3 of those players, see how they fit, see if you like any of them. If not, maybe you can train for an outside guy. But now, like you said, it seems like Kelee Ringo might get his name called again. And we saw what the Giants did to him last time. They actually should be getting back Darius Slayton. And so they'll have a little bit better receivers out there as well, which is not good news for Kelee Ringo. But One of the reasons that I think they might have held out Jakorian Bennett and a guy like Brandon Graham as well is because Zach Berman, who you had on the show, was one of the best reporters on the beat. He talked about how Brandon Graham technically doesn't count towards the 53-man roster right now for at least up to 2 weeks until the Eagles actually have him on there. So maybe right now they still have that open roster spot. So if they want to activate a guy like Darius Cooper for the game, whereas before they would have to activate Jakorian Bennett as well, like then they would have to start cutting guys, waiving guys ahead of the bye week, like making a lot of these roster decisions that they might want to be just kick the can down the road a bit. But at the same time, it's like it almost to me feels like they think that, oh, we have enough against the Giants. We don't need to add these guys, which is kind of what we saw come back to bite them the last time around when they didn't rush Jalen Carter back. So we'll see if it pays off or not, like last time, but it's definitely concerning.
At least the Giants have some injuries. So, every team does, especially this time of year. And the Giants looks like they'll be without multiple starters at some key positions. So I guess in a way it evens out.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're not going to have Paulson Debo. He was ruled out. Javon Holland's doubtful, so he's probably not going to play either. So that's their top safety and their top outside corner, which is obviously a huge thing for the Eagles, especially considering that A.J. Brown is out. So now maybe you can get Devontae Smith in some favorable matchups where that wouldn't have been the case before. But it does look like Brian Burns will play, where he didn't practice to start the week. He was spotted in a walking boot after their last game, but he leads the NFL with 9 sacks this season, and it looks like he will be good to go, along with Darius Slayton returning, who was arguably their best receiver as well. So they're losing a couple of guys, but they're also getting a couple of guys back as well.
How can the Eagles, because we talk about matchups every week too, and everybody should be following, if you're not, you're crazy, but should be following Anthony at DeBona NFL. Matchups on the offensive side. Couple ones to keep an eye on. You did mention the injuries. I know a couple of those, obviously, because we're talking about beforehand, but the matchups there that maybe they take advantage of with those injuries.
So I just talked about Paulson Adebo being out. So that means that Deonte Banks is probably going to be one of the starting outside corners for the Giants. And he's kind of like New York's version of Kelee Ringo, where he was a relatively highly drafted young corner that, I mean, he was a first-round pick, but he had promise, not the greatest player when he was put into start. Now he'll be forced into action. He came in last week when Adebo got hurt, allowed 3 completions on 3 targets for 40 yards and a touchdown against the Broncos. So now if you can somehow get Devontae Smith, who's basically the Eagles' only top receiver with A.J. Brown being out, if you can get him matched up against Deonte Banks, I feel like that could be a favorable matchup for the Eagles to take advantage of. But then on the flip side, one of the matchups to watch for is Brett Toth, who we spoke about, against that Giants defensive front. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence is one of the best nose tackles in the NFL, but then they do weird stuff sometimes where you'll see Abdul Carter over the center, or they'll bring in Brian Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau. So they just the communication, which hasn't been on point for the Eagles all season long along the offensive line, needs to be on point in this game, especially with a backup center in there.
The sound of a lot of that just gives me a ton of... I mean, I like the first part with the Devontae Smith element, and they have their own Kelee Ringo, but yeah, the idea of all those with Toth maybe gets a lot of help. Play action, perhaps. This is where, again, you go back to like the running game get going, if somehow it can, would very much pay huge dividends. What we're going up against and how that plays out for Brett Toth, everything on that side. Now, at least defensively, Jalen Carter is going to be there. Did not have him in the first matchup against the Giants, so I'm expecting big things from the bread man. A couple other matchups, though, that you have on the defensive side.
So, yeah, I'll start with Jalen Carter and kind of the Eagles' pass rush as a whole, because obviously missing him in the middle was huge against the Giants that first time around, because we saw how Jaxson Dart was able to escape, and they had those rushing lanes that he was able to wiggle through because they couldn't really contain him in the pocket. So the fact that now you're getting Jalen Carter back, I know they're a little bit light on the edge, but I think that Vic Fangio kind of learned from his mistakes the last time around. Maybe he didn't think Dart could run like he did against them and kind of embarrass them in that regard. So I think we'll see a little bit more 5-man, maybe even 6-man pressures where they don't give Dart those kind of escape routes to get wiggle through and just force him to either get rid of the ball quick or potentially, hopefully, they'll rack up some sacks. But then I have to also point out kind of a concerning matchup. And that, like I said with Deonte Banks, you have to worry about Kelee Ringo. There
it is.
Because we saw what he did against Lil Jordan Humphrey. I said he made him look like Lil Julio Jones out there in week 6. But now Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, that's a little bit of a step up compared to a little Jordan Humphrey. So, I mean, it would be great to see him hold his own. But after that last performance, even with the haircut, I don't know if it's going to look too good for Kelee Ringo out there.
We can hope and pray. There's a chance. Even if he doesn't look great, the Eagles should and could win this game because, again, there's so many different matchups. We talk about through with the Giants. Oddly enough, and because I was going through and mentioned this also earlier here in this video, but the Giants have scored the first touchdown in every game that Jaxson Dart has started. So I bring that up to you because we do our first touchdown score predictions here. Do you take the Giants? Does that trend continue, or is this a break the streak?
Well, I actually wasn't aware of that stat, which makes me even more confident in my pick that I know.
That's why I didn't tell you that before.
Video,
I knew what you were going to get with.
Which I know the viewers of this video are not going to appreciate. But we've seen the Eagles, whenever they win the coin toss, they usually kick it. And the defense has started slow at times. So I do have the Giants scoring the first touchdown. And I have that being tight end Theo Johnson, who has 4 touchdowns in their last 4 games. Ironically, the only game he didn't score a touchdown out of those 4 was against the Eagles. But the Eagles almost gave up a touchdown to T.J. Hawkinson last week if he reeled it in. So I think Theo Johnson, he's been kind of a hot target for Jaxson Dart since he's become the starter, and I think that streak could continue against the Eagles.
Okay, yeah, we don't. You're right. We don't like that one, opposing team, but you can redeem yourself depending on the score prediction. I said Saquon Barkley. I'm going to stick with that. I know it's the chalky pick and the play, but it's time. It's probably just my wishful thinking, and I've seen some other comments too, so I apologize for those that are superstitious, and they're like, Josh, you just need to pick against it, and then he's finally going to do it. So maybe that's what I need. One of these weeks, if it doesn't happen this week, I'll probably pick against it for Green Bay, and then I'll be like, hey, look, there you go. There's the running game. It showed back up. But I'm going to take Saquon Barkley. Score predictions, though. You were feeling like the Giants were going to keep it close last time, and then they even blew out the Eagles, but you took the Vikings last week, and there was some flack for that. Are you going with the Giants? Do you think that the Eagles get it done?
No, so I'm not going to go with the Giants. I do think it will be a close game once again. It just feels like the Giants, all they've been playing this season basically has been close games. The same thing with the Eagles. I know the spread is 7.5. Initially, my score prediction that I told Josh was a little bit bigger of a victory margin than this one, but I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to go Eagles 28, Giants 23, and it's a win, which is big going into the bye week. I know people will want to be a little bit more of a blowout, but given the injuries that they're dealing with, I feel like this is a comfortable win moving into the bye week and getting ready for Green Bay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth. We talked about this a decent amount, like you say, before recording here, and I'm like, man, I see the spread 7.5. That's saying something, because why on earth are they getting that many points, or having to lay that many points for a team that just got blown out by the Giants a few weeks ago? There's the belief, yes, they've turned a corner, the physicality, they've got that attitude, the swagger, all that. I'm believing in it, though. I think that they barely cover, as I said earlier. It may be a late score of sorts and taking care of business, but I do think that they cover. I'm saying 27-17. Changed it a little bit from what I said earlier in the week. I was saying 30-20. It's still a 10-point difference, but I think we'll take 3 points less because AJ is not going to be there. The offense perhaps not able to get quite as much, but we'll take 27, especially if the defense holds us to 17. So there we go. Everybody else, let us know your score predictions. Let us know your first touchdown score. As always, going to give away an Eagles jersey, any one of your choice, if the Eagles win on the game stream. So come hang out on Sunday, cheer on the Birds, get the dub with a win, go into the bye week that way. Not a better way to get your rest, get the guys healed up and everything else. But appreciate you guys. Check out Anthony's content as well, thephillyspecialshow.com, game preview, picks, plays, everything else that you need to know. And until next time, we'll see you guys. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Like I should feel like